And we're live. Hello,
Hi,
and welcome to another episode of the Fernando and
Fernando
Freddy
and
Show.
Freddy Show. It's been a long time.
My name is Fernando.
My name's Freddy.
And welcome, you guys. Welcome to another episode of the Fernando and Freddy Show. You guys, this is evictions during a pandemic.
Yes. This is a crazy thing. Also, what I was telling you was I was looking at there were two girls that were using the Taco Bell Wi-Fi, and then
Okay.
they like that's the story I read that yesterday. That two girls were doing their homework on the Taco Bell Wi-Fi, and some people called the police on them. Of course, because people can't just go ask them what they're doing. And they're kids, and there's a picture of them on the internet. And apparently they got evicted, and so they were using the Wi-Fi to do their schoolwork, which is, amazing. I mean,
Were they at the Taco Bell?
They were like behind, like, they have like the back door.
Oh, okay.
So they were like back over, like by there. It's not like they were sitting in front or something. I guess they should have just like ordered a taco each, but I guess if they're evicted, they probably didn't have the money. Yeah, kind of crazy. So they got.
You said they're doing their homework, but like, were they like doing homeschool? Like,
No, they're not. When I say their homework, but I mean their what the kids are doing, like on the
yeah. Like
the
they
Zoom.
were attending class behind the Taco Bell. Okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
So it's kind of like, hectic.
So, I'm sorry. Hang on a second here. Okay. That's pretty interesting. So what happened?
Well, CPS came, of course, and then it ended up being like, well, what can you do? I mean,
where was
they weren't being?
Did the parents?
They weren't being abused. No, they were just. I believe they were homeless, and they were just, doing their work right there.
Do you know where this was?
In California somewhere. I forgot where it was. There was a picture on the internet. You can find it. Just look up the two girls, and someone started a GoFundMe, and I guess they got them a hotel room for the time being. But I mean, kind of.
I hope they have free Wi-Fi.
Oh, Fernando.
All right, so
I think it's honorable. I mean, imagine if you have no place to live and you're still doing your homework. Like,
that's good. Yeah,
I think that would be the last of my worries at that time.
Yeah. But they probably had their eye on better things. They know that it was maybe just a temporary time, and they knew that eventually they were going to be out of it, and they were going to have to go back to school. And maybe they didn't want to be like, all right, well, I left in 3rd grade and now I should be in 5th grade, but you know what, I didn't go to school.
No, come on, it's the time of COVID.
Talking about these children now being on the street, I think it does raise a very important question. Should landlords be allowed to evict a tenant during the coronavirus pandemic?
I don't think they should be able to evict anyone.
Ever?
Well, not ever, but I mean, just in general, I think the laws in California are pretty horrendous when it comes to evicting people. Because they literally can evict you for any reason, anytime. I mean, I've heard of many horror stories of like, oh, the person's getting divorced, so they kicked everyone out, of the building, or they kick people out because they want to convert it to Airbnbs. And they have no consequence for throwing people out on the streets.
Well, there are a lot of different like rules and different laws that are set into place, and even with like eviction times, you do have to have a certain time. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to kick you out. You got to be gone in 30 days. If you're on a lease.
They have 3-day quits and 7-day quits.
But that's if you fail to pay. That's not just saying...
not even if you fail to pay. Not even if you fail to pay. You literally can be kicked out. I was just reading a story about a man who was kicked out because the owner was converting the buildings into, or they found out later, converting it into Airbnbs because they were making far more money renting it out as short-term rentals. So they kicked people out of the whole building.
But 7-day quit. 7 days. I'm pretty sure that's 100% inaccurate.
No, Fernando, do I need to send you a link right now?
You can do it later, but yes, we link to it.
But
we don't have to do it right now.
It's California law. They can do. I think the shortest is 3 day, but 7-day quit. Yeah, it's
but
a no
that's
fault
if
eviction.
you're pretty sure that's not true. That's like if you're not
100%.
complying with something.
This is something like no, absolutely not. Because I mean, the guy literally said in the thing that they were kicked out in 7 days. And I want to say that those girls too,
right.
the girls right here, who were doing the Taco Bell thing, that in that article it said they were kicked out on a 7-day on a 7-day eviction notice.
Interesting. We can definitely look into that a little bit more, and you can send me the links, and we'll actually put the links in the comments below, because I mean, I want to definitely read about that too, because that does not sound like it's accurate whatsoever.
Well, obviously they didn't have money, but I don't know how they evicted them during that time. But yeah, they were evicted in 7 days.
So you don't think that people should be able to be evicted at all, even if it wasn't a time of the coronavirus?
Not in that type of fashion. I think you should automatically, even if, let's say, you didn't pay, I think you should still give people 30 days.
And because that's typically, I thought, what it was the case, like when you're.
But you just said right now earlier, the 7-day thing is you must have done something wrong. So you already know that that's a possibility.
Right. But like, say if you're constantly, causing a nuisance to your neighbors.
But you still said right now you didn't think that was legal, but then you know it exists. So you do know it's legal.
Well, it is something. Like if you're smoking, drugs in your apartment, or, even if it's marijuana, and, your neighbors are all complaining, and your landlord comes up to you and says, hey, you know what, you need to stop. And they're constantly doing it. Then they say, all right, you know what? This is going to be your notice to comply, or you got to go.
But not 7 days. They should still be given 30 days. I think in this day and age, I mean, even when you really want to move, to find an apartment is really hard.
But I also do think that there are other things that go into it. And I think if we're going to have this conversation, we both need to do a little bit of research before we just go talking about it. But I think that there are like warnings and different things that go into play with it, like written warnings.
We're just talking not as just gonna. It really depends on where you live. I mean, it depends on how old your place is, and I mean, this is something that I'm pretty well versed on, because one of my friend's moms often deals. Well, she's a lawyer, so her practice often deals with eviction notices and things like this, and it happens pretty often. I mean, a lot of people, they panic and they get a lawyer to block evictions and things like that, because they otherwise they're on the street, and trying to get off the street into a place is much harder than going from a place to another place.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you're not just going to get evicted for no reason. There has to be.
You could, I mean, but you can really, it's like being fired, Fernando. You can make up any reason to support whatever the reason is that you want to get these people out of there for. You can be like, oh, you left a towel up on the railing, and that's a violation of your lease terms. We had this conversation before when we talked about hanging up laundry.
But hold on,
an eviction because we already did this.
What's that?
Oh, not necessarily. That's only if the person doesn't comply.
Well,
send a piece of paper on someone's door and let them know that they're being evicted is okay, but to actually evict them legally.
Where do they get that
print it off?
You have to go to court, and you have to actually get a judge to sign your eviction notice when you actually get to the proper proceedings.
That's only if you have to literally throw the person out. You can give them a 7-day quit notice without having to go to court for that. If the person fails to comply, then you have to go to the courts to do a legal eviction. But telling someone they have to leave in 7 days is not, well, I guess, yes, it's not the same thing. It's not as expensive, but if the person doesn't want to leave, then yes, then you do have to go to the courts and do it.
But so right now, during the whole coronavirus pandemic and everything going on with people losing their jobs and people not paying their rent. So say, for example, like right now, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to stop paying my rent. So, I stop paying my rent. Well, what happens to the person who owns the property that I live in?
Well, that can be difficult depending on if it's a conglomerate, like a lot of places, or if it's just like a small mom and pop, type thing. Just to go back to what we were just talking about right now, I just typed in 7-day quit notice in Google, and the first thing that pops up is free 7-day eviction notice template PDF.
Template, right? Okay, so
yeah, so you can literally just fill it out. Yeah.
Right. But you have to have, I don't know. I think there's other stuff that goes into it too, because you do have to go to court.
But I'm saying if they fight it, yes. But if the person just leaves in 7 days, then there's no problem.
Yeah, but I wonder how
But look
often
right
people
here.
really just their
But look
7
right here.
days.
One of the because Google always says what people are also asking. One of the questions is what happens when you get a 3-day notice to quit? As soon as a tenant fails to pay rent, a landlord can give the tenant a 3-day notice. This notice must inform the tenant that if the tenant does not pay rent within 3 days of receiving the notice, that the landlord will begin eviction processes against the tenant. So I guess that's probably the same thing about the 7-day quit. If you don't leave after the 7 days, then they have
I
to
don't think
proceed with.
that. I think when you're reading quit, it means like quit doing what you're doing and pay your
No,
rent.
no, no. Quit
So
means leave.
I don't think so because you just read it in the 3-day. It said that you have 3 days to pay your rent, or we will start the eviction process. So I think
Yeah,
that's
but
saying in
generally
three
most
days
people
we're
would
going to start the
leave.
process.
Hold on.
I
Well,
don't
let
think
me.
they're generally going to leave because where are you going to go in 3 days?
Well, some people would leave because some people don't want that eviction notice on their name. Let's see. A landlord has the option of how to give a 3 notice to a tenant. The landlord can personally hand the notice. Landlord can't find the tenant. Landlord can give someone to a suitable age. Okay, here we go. Evicting the tenant. Oh yeah, so it says the landlord must go to court and win an eviction lawsuit in order to evict a tenant. To start the eviction lawsuit, also called an unlawful detainer lawsuit, the landlord must file a summons and complain with the superior court of the county or district in which the rental unit is located.
So I mean, it's not like a super quick process, and it's not cheap because
But if
the
the person
person taking
fights it
them.
though, if the
Well,
person fights it though, but I mean, who's gonna? I mean, if my landlord's gonna kick me out, am I going to stay or am I going to leave? I mean,
well, I don't know. I think it just
it's
kind of
just as
depends.
costly for the person. Just, I mean, if I'm already having trouble paying my rent, I'm probably not going to have the resources to hire a lawyer to fight
You
it
don't
as
have
well.
to. You pretty much what you do and what they're saying is during an eviction, like you go to court, you get the eviction paperwork and everything like that. That's why, the sheriff's department comes out and they actually put a lock on the door and they tell you got to go. That's
Yeah, so then that's what I'm saying. So
it's a
then
long, but it's a lengthy process. It's not like super quick. And a
how do
lot
you
of
know
times
that though? How do you know?
I just, I know, I have some experience with this.
You've
Not
thrown people out on the streets?
I've never thrown anybody out, or I've never actually been the person that was thrown out, but I do have some firsthand experience with it. So it's not quick, and there are a
But
handful of
even
people
then
who
though,
extend their
it's
stay and who have already should have been gone that aren't. It's a very lengthy and it's not a cheap process.
I wonder how much it cost. But go back to what you were saying about the evictions in California.
I don't know what I was saying. Oh, well, I was asking the question was, so let's even change it. So say I own an apartment complex. I have 5 units in there. And what happens if 4 of those 5 people stop paying me rent? Then what?
In
Right now,
times of
during
COVID,
coronavirus.
well, I believe that it doesn't matter. You can't do anything because it's well, as of Monday, it's been blocked that you can't evict anyone until February,
Yeah, so it got
and I think it's supposed to go even longer than that, actually.
So could you imagine though, like owning a property, like you own this apartment complex and people aren't
Yeah,
paying rent for almost a year? Like how much money is that you just lost? And imagine this is your income, or imagine that you're trying to pay off this apartment complex. So I mean, how I say apartment complex, but I mean even if it's 5 units,
no,
small apartment, but
well, that's a
you still have
complex
to pay a
though. But
mortgage on that, like
I think in cases like this, um, I mean, if you can find, let's say that the people did move because they couldn't. Well, I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily going to move because if they can't afford to pay rent, they might not leave, and they don't have to right now because the law's protecting them. But like in Europe, you can't evict people in wintertime.
oh, because they might get kicked on the street.
Well, yeah, because it's cold
It'd be
here. I
too
mean, you
cold.
you couldn't live in your. I mean, no, it's you would probably die if you lived in your car because how are you going to stay warm? And it
Yeah.
snows a lot of places. I think it's the same in other states too, where it's really cold. Like they can't like shut off utilities in wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they can evict people in wintertime in some states too, because
That would make
can you
sense.
imagine like if you're in like Wisconsin?
Trying to move when it's like snowing and it's like -degrees outside.
Yeah, like or just like being on the street. So I think this is probably a unique situation in California, but
Yeah.
I guess but going back to right now in the notice that they did say that they were going to for small landlords that they were going to help them too with foreclosures so that they wouldn't go into foreclosures and things like that.
Well,
So
if you
there
don't
has to
go
be
into foreclosure, but that's just for the time being. So what happens in February when they say, okay, you can start evicting people now? Well,
then
I
you
just
kick them
lost
out and you
a
get
year,
people in.
but I
I
just
mean,
lost a year's worth of rent. So I couldn't pay my mortgage for a whole year because my tenants didn't pay me.
but I guess it's also those same things as like if you have a house and it goes upside down, you have a choice. Either you let it go upside down and be foreclosed on and rebuy it, or you sell it. I mean, you it's the same thing. If you were to lose your job and you own a house and you have a mortgage on that house, what do? You just say, oh well, the other person's not paying my rent, so I couldn't. They're going to say, but you should already, you know, pay this on yourself, and like here
Yeah, but
in hold on, when it comes to like banking here, like when you want to get a loan, they you if you can't pay that mortgage, 75% of that mortgage just on your salary, not including rent from your tenants, you can't buy the property. Like they don't let you do things like that in the US where you're like, it's mortgaged to 100% because you can't pay it unless the people are paying you rent. They would never let you do that here. So it's the same thing. You took the risk of buying a property that you couldn't afford to pay with zero rent. So
yeah,
I
but
can
what you need
understand
to
the
look
bank
at
side from
too,
that.
what you need to look at too, though, is okay, well, if I'm going to go try to sell this property now, okay, my tenant stopped paying me. Well, I have my books for it, my accounting books. So it's going to show how much I'm supposed to be charging for rent and how much money is actually coming in for rent. So when somebody looks
But
at this,
that's supply and demand as well.
no, when somebody is
What do
going
you
to,
mean no?
a possible person wanting to buy this property from me, it's not supply and demand because
It
if
is supply and demand because it's
well, let me
if
finish what I'm
everyone right
saying.
now.
Let me finish what I'm
Okay.
saying, please. So, say for example, you want to buy this apartment complex from me, right? I have 5 units and all 5 are taken, but only one of those people living there is paying rent. When you're looking at my books, you're saying, why am I going to buy this apartment complex when I know I can't evict these 4 people and they're not paying rent? Why am I going to buy it? It makes no sense.
Because
And you know
I
that
can look at the potential of the area, the value. I could probably renovate the place, get new tenants in, because once obviously I'm going to be able to evict those people eventually. So I mean, I can look at it the long term and not the short term. I mean, all
right,
business
but
decisions of that type of magnitude should always be long term, not what can I do right here, right now.
that's not necessarily the case, especially in
That's
small
always
complexes
the
like that.
case.
No, it's not.
It,
Especially in a
what do you
small
mean? It's not?
complex like that. Why are you going to buy a complex from me when, now I'm struggling because my people aren't paying me rent? So why are you going to buy a complex from me that's not making money?
Because I just told you right now, I'm going to
Right.
get rid of those
So
people when I can,
when you
and then I'm
can, but
going to put people.
what if in February it gets extended again?
That's fine. I already, if I'm buying in this time period, I have the money, and the banks
But
are
what if,
going to be extra vigilant in checking people's finances before financing them for these type of properties right now. I mean,
and
the
now
bank's
you're
not
also
going to want to
saying,
lose their.
so I
Huh?
can't afford to continue to pay my rent on my apartment complex because the people living there aren't paying me, right? So
Yeah,
I don't understand why anybody would even want to buy that apartment complex when they're going to have to wait. They're going to have to wait
because
6 months. Hold on. They're going to have to wait 6 months to try to evict the people. The people that are living there, they're probably trashing the place. They probably aren't taking care of anything.
no, that's not true.
So,
This is COVID right now, so you can't turn those people now into these bad people because they can't pay.
well, you never know.
No, because you would have evicted them before then.
Well, how would you know what they're doing though?
Well, you would know. You obviously monitor your apartments and your tenants there. You're going to have noise complaints. If there's noise or problems,
What
the
you
police
need
are
to
going
think
to
about
inform you
too,
if they're
though,
coming out.
is that they know they've got to go. They know that once it's up in February, they're going to be leaving, right? So what do they
Yeah.
care? If it's already going to be an eviction on their credit score, why do they care if they go through and trash
Because
my
not
apartment.
everyone
They're
who
mad at
can't
me.
have poor people are not villains, Fernando. Being poor is not a crime. It's not, you're not necessarily
These
a bad
people
person
aren't
because you
poor.
don't have money. But you're
These
just
people
saying right
aren't
now
poor.
that these people aren't, what do you mean? They're poor if they don't have money to pay their rent.
Well, maybe now they are, but not in the past.
Exactly. So why are they now all of a sudden going to be bad people trashing the place?
Because it happens. It happens a lot.
Yes, it does happen, but not all the time. I've never trashed a
why-
place. Have you?
Have you ever heard of? Well, I've never been.
Have you ever
evicted
trashed a place?
I've never been
No,
evicted either.
me either.
You ever
But
been
I've never
evicted?
trashed a place. No, but I can tell
I've
you
heard
they
of a lot of
screen me like
places.
I've
I've
rented
heard of a
many
lot of
places.
places
And they've
that have.
always made sure to check if I'm making noise, if I'm throwing parties. If I have to give them a list of all my references of the places I've lived and my credit scores, everything. I'm scrutinized like you can't believe. And even then, I still don't get the place. And I always make more than what they're asking for and all this stuff. So I would assume that they're not going to assume that everyone who's staying in the place after going through all that is going to just tarnish their name and make it difficult for them in the future.
Well, at the same time, if they're going to be evicted, then they're going to have that difficult issue to start with. And two, you don't have to give that as a reference. Anyways, I'll give you a really good example. My last apartment that I had moved into, I had previously rented from a friend of mine. I had rented a room in his house. I supplied his phone number to my last apartment. They just called him. How easy would that have been for me to give somebody else's phone number? I want to move into an apartment. I don't like my own landlord.
When you do the credit check, as every place that I've ever done, you have to give your social security number, and then they can see where you've lived, your lists of address. They can call the owner, but I mean, it's really easy when you have the program. You can go on LexisNexis, you can pull up the deed owner, you can call that person to find out if that really is the tenant. And I mean, it costs you nothing. You type in the information of the program and it gives you all the details. So whether you supply me with a name or not, if I'm doing my job as the property manager or the leasing agent or the company, I'm going to be able to find out if you lied to me or not. And I'm not more than likely, if I'm working at one of those companies, I'm not just calling the person you gave me. I'm calling the last 3 places you've lived. And I'm also going to verify your employment. And I'm also going to, but I'm going to verify everything. It's my job to do that.
Right. But what if I tell you that, I lived at this place for the last 5 years. Here's my friend's phone number.
Yeah, but I just told you right now, it comes up in the program. I don't even necessarily need your friend's phone number. The program I just told you, like when you have you ever rented a place in like a big apartment complex or condo where you had to pay like a $50 or $100 background check? And then they go through like the whole background. They find out where you've lived and if you have a record and everything.
But the thing with my background is everything comes back to a PO box. I don't have my resident addresses on anything.
You have to on your driver's license.
Nope, PO box.
How is that legal?
My car, PO box. It is legal because it's my address. That's the address that I use for everything.
But that's not where you live. Like your bank, you can't put a PO box.
PO box.
They have a mailing address, but they have to have your living address. I know that for sure. Like I can't say, oh yes, send me my passport to a PO box. I know that you can't do. It says on the form, no PO boxes.
Actually, well, so it's not necessarily a PO box. PO is post office box at the post office. I use a PMB, so it's a mail center.
Okay, so that's different. That's not this. No, that's a little bit different though.
And it recognizes it. It knows. It knows that it's a mail.
I believe you're not legally allowed. Hold on. Can I use a PO box for government? Let's see. Let's see. It depends on what it is.
Well, I can tell you everything. Everything that I have is registered to my.
But you also have to. You have a mailing address, though. But you also have another physical address that you put. I would imagine.
Nope, everything. I don't get one thing to my personal residence, and my personal residence address isn't on anything.
No, that's what I just said. A mailing address. A mailing address is not necessarily where you live. Your physical address. Sometimes that they have the 2 things listed, so you can have your physical address,
on everything. There's no record of my residence besides on a utility bill.
Because that's weird. Because even when I've worked for high-profile people, that's not even legal. Like they generally have to have an address, but it won't be their address. It'll be another address. But I wonder how you got away with that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But so I don't know, like when it comes back, like on my credit report, it doesn't even have my actual home address. It has my other box.
Well, maybe not the one you're at now, but it would have some addresses there.
Everything comes back. I removed my old addresses that were on there when I was younger were on there, but I removed them because it was over 5 years.
Oh.
So.
Well, that's interesting because I did a background check on myself before, not too long ago, and I didn't find all the places I lived, but some of them were still on there from like 10 years ago. I wasn't aware that you could remove them. That's interesting.
Yeah, on your credit report you can.
So your evictions.
Oh, so
and so poor people don't destroy places. So the reason why I would still buy the apartment place is because I would see the potential. I would see that I can still get rent. I could see that, okay, people are renting it. Even if they're not paying right now, at one point they were paying, so they weren't evicted then. So I know I could still get people to come in and move. So I probably would buy someone who's trying to sell their apartment complex right now because they'd probably be desperate to not go too bad into debt with the foreclosure.
Right, but what you need to think too
I probably
is
could get a pretty good bargain.
If I can't afford to pay my mortgage on it, well, maybe I'll sell it for whatever I still owe, right? Or whatever the bank is willing to sell it for.
Maybe, but I'm willing to hold out because I know you need the money.
But it's not me; it's the bank, not me.
Oh, well, if you're already in foreclosure, you're right. If you're already in foreclosure, then I'm going even lower. But we're talking about you and me. You're like, well, you still own it, so you're still in charge of it. Unless it goes into foreclosure, it's not the bank who's going to deal with selling the property. Banks do not sell properties.
So
unless it's in foreclosure.
I'm buying an apartment complex, right, for $1 million. That's what I'm buying, right? I only paid, say, $1 million, or I only paid $100,000, so I still owe $900,000 on it. How are you going to come in and me almost pay $500,000 when you still owe $900 on it?
Well, because you've already would have paid some of your mortgage. You're not going to just be able to sell it right there.
I'm using an example. I'm saying
doesn't work. That example doesn't work because you need at least your 20%, unless you did some type of weird restructuring thing, so you're paying a high interest rate, whatever. But then you would be making payments already. I mean, it doesn't mean that the principal has gone down. You're still paying on your interest. So the bank has still made some money on it.
This is okay. They made $100,000. I'm saying that I paid. It was sold for $1 million. I paid $100,000 of it. Okay, so now I owe $900,000 on the apartment complex, and I need to sell it because my tenants are no longer paying rent.
Okay.
So
you're selling it. So, like I said, I'm going to negotiate. If I really want this place,
no negotiating. I still owe $900,000.
Yeah, and if you're not willing to negotiate with your buyer, I'm not going to buy from you. I'll wait.
I can't negotiate it. I don't have any money to cover that. So how am I going to negotiate? Even $100,000 off? It's impossible.
This is what I said. I'll just wait for it to go into foreclosure, because if you have no buyers and no one's going to buy and you can't negotiate it, it's not my problem. It's your place.
Right.
I'm
but you're saying that you want to buy this property, right? We're not talking about foreclosure.
No, I know. But this is what I'm saying.
Buyer. I said, why would a buyer want to buy?
Listen to what I'm saying. You are not having the money to pay for it. It's going to go into foreclosure. Your tenants aren't paying you. You can't afford it. It's going into foreclosure. Because if you can still afford to keep it and no one's still paying you, then you wouldn't be selling it. Or maybe you would be. I mean, I can't say that. But
we're not talking about foreclosure. You're over here saying that this is why you're going to buy it. So
this is what I just said.
You're saying that I can negotiate, but I can't negotiate if...
I know. And so I said, I will walk away until it goes into foreclosure. If it goes into foreclosure, we don't know if it will or not. Maybe you still have some savings. But I would just wait. I'd go somewhere else.
Okay. So in the meantime, how am I going to sell my property? You said that it's so easy just to sell it. It's not that easy.
I didn't say it's easy. I didn't say that it was easy. I was just saying I would be buying in this market then if I know you have to sell.
Well, going way back to the beginning, you said, well, if your tenants aren't paying, then just sell it. If you can afford to pay your rent or your mortgage, I'm sorry, just sell it.
Yeah. Well, that you would have to, because like I said, you're going to go into foreclosure if you can't afford to pay it. So yeah, sell it.
Okay. So circling all the way back where we are now, I can't just sell it. So now what do I do? So the tenants, people who are living there, are no longer paying me, but I'm now the owner. I can't afford to pay my mortgage. You're saying sell it. Well, I can't sell it. I don't want to go into foreclosure. That's not fair. So why is
the government
fair
already said that they're going to help people who are small landlords. So
okay.
I imagine that they're going to. Well, I don't know. I read this to you earlier that they just said that they were going to help small landlords from going into foreclosure.
But I wonder what their plan to do that, and what are they really going to be doing, because it's already been happening.
You gotta have to read it. I don't know, but how is it fair, as you're saying? It's not necessarily fair, because it's really at no fault. So really, realistically, the bank should also be working with the owners as well, because this is an unprecedented time where people are out of work because of the pandemic. They can't go to work even though they want to work. They want to pay their rent. So, I mean, it's really just everyone should all just take a minute and realize that this is like a once in a lifetime event, like truly, and deal with it that way.
Yeah.
Or you think that it doesn't matter, everything should just go on as normal?
No, I'm not saying that it should, completely go on as normal, but I just think that it's really tough. And by putting the option of no eviction, it's kind of making a lot of people, real quick, you guys, we have our website down here on the bottom, FernandoandFreddyShow.com. It brings you directly to our YouTube page, and you can see all of our different videos. When you get there, you can actually hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel, so you will get
and the notification bell
when we do our different videos, when we post our videos. But restate your question, Freddie.
I totally forgot. I got it.
I did too.
I we were gonna, yeah, because when you put that up, I was like, "Oh, okay, are we finished then?"
No. Things I don't necessarily, they shouldn't be like normal, but at the same time, by saying that, oh, you know what, you don't have to pay your rent, you're not going to get evicted. There's a lot of people that are out there right now who are really taking advantage of that.
You can't say that though. That's not true.
Am, because I have a good friend who works in apartments, and
but people exaggerate extremely.
Complex. And even if you look at the statistics, a lot of people are taking advantage of it, and a lot of people are paying their rent late. Even talking to people at work and just talking to different friends, like they know of a lot of people who are taking advantage of it as well. And by taking advantage of it, I don't mean abuse it. I'm just saying that, I'm going to pay my rent late.
Well, as long as they pay it in full by the time this is over, then they're okay. But I believe that was one of the things, because some people want to ration their money and make sure they have money for food and things like that. But I mean, once February comes, that's got to be 100%, or you're going to get that quit notice.
Right. So I mean, some people aren't even really thinking about that, that you're.
But you have to say taking advantage of it is gives it a negative connotation, because if you really are worried, like, okay, I have this much money for food, I have unemployment coming in. I mean, yeah, you are going to have to rationalize and reevaluate and be careful, because you could just give all your money to the landlord and still end up on the street or with nothing to eat. I mean, but it's one of those things where you really have to be communicating with your owner, your landlord, and saying, hey, I can pay my rent in full, but then I would have no money to eat, or no money for my water, or no money for my electricity, and I still will need those things to get back on my feet. So, I mean, it's communication. I mean, it's
right.
I think it's one of those things. It's like, like I told you, the place that was by me was empty from January and just got rented right now in August.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
And it's never been that way this way. So whether you kick someone out because they didn't pay their rent for a month or two, you still can be without a tenant, because no one is really trying to move at this time. And actually the people who moved into there are retirees.
Oh really?
Yeah. And the only reason why they moved there is because the owner of their last place got divorced because of the here we had a real quarantine where you couldn't leave the house. And after 3.5 months, a lot of people have gotten divorced here. A lot. People who were together for 10 years. I actually no. Yeah, 10 years. I know a friend just today I found out got divorced after 11
there was
years.
a article yesterday that someone had posted. I saw. It's kind of interesting. It said that New York moving companies can't keep up with the demand for people moving. There's a lot of people who are moving out of the city or moving out of these fancy apartments.
It's the same here.
And, so, I mean, maybe because of all the restrictions, but also because of expensive rent, like that article or that discussion that we did a couple months ago already now about a friend moving to New York and trying to find a job.
Oh, yeah. When you wouldn't let me live with you. I still remember.
Right.
Actually, the same thing is happening here. A lot of people are leaving the cities to go live in the countryside because it is that expensive. They're closing schools because so many people are leaving the cities. Airbnb was a problem as well. And like I said, all those apartments are for those Airbnb people who've had them for so long are having to sell now because no one's staying in them anymore.
Yeah, I know. Well, I told you that we were going to be traveling to Europe.
Yeah, you were supposed to be here by now.
No, it would have been my vacation starts in
I thought it was November.
21 days. No, so the beginning of October, like the end of September, September 29th, I think was our flight date. But they just canceled our Airbnb. We got a full refund automatically. We didn't have to submit anything. Flights automatically canceled. So yeah,
that's great.
I know, but
well, Well, it might be a good thing because if I get this job, you can come stay with me in the big city.
That'll
save you a whole. I said the big city. I didn't say the Big Apple. There's more than one big city around the world,
Yeah. All right,
Fernando, pay your rent.
I'm gonna pay my rent. You guys, thank you for watching. And like I said earlier, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You can get the notifications by clicking. Can you guys see? You can't see that arrow, can you? Where is it? Right over here.
This arrow? Hold on.
Yeah,
this
there we go.
I'm pointing to. Thank you.
So hit the
ding
the little bell button.
I was gonna hit the bell. I was gonna go ding.
Oh, here. Ding it.
Ding. Ding.
So that's the notifications, so you can see when actually we do post our videos. But you guys, thank you for watching. This has been another episode of.
Hold on.
And
let us know what you think about these eviction notices, 3-day quit, 7-day quits. Good idea, bad idea. What would you do in the same scenario? Right or wrong? No judgment. Fernando's not a mean person for wanting to throw me on the street, evict me in 3 days. I told you I got the money coming, Fernando. I'm just waiting to be paid. Once it comes in my hand, it goes to you.
All right, you guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. This is another episode of the Fernando and Freddy Show.